Good evening. As the president makes plans for his military send-off next week, the capital he's preparing to flee is witnessing the kind of military presence once seen only in places like Baghdad and Kabul, which is not something to just take note of and move on from. It has not been this way since the Civil War, and it's growing. The Pentagon late today upping the contingent for next week's inauguration from 21 to 25,000 National Guard members. And just as the threat picture for that took shape, there's breaking news about a police intelligence report that predicted something like what we saw last week, 3 days before the assault took place. That and other new details about last week's attack. They make it clear, in case a reminder is needed, that this could easily have been far deadlier than it was. There's new reporting in the Washington Post about how close the insurrectionists, some of whom were shouting "Hang Mike Pence" and "Lynch Pence," may have come to actually crossing paths with the vice president, his wife, and daughter. According to the Post timeline, this mob being lured away bravely from the Senate chamber door by Capitol Police Officer Eugene Goodman came up the stairs at 2:14 p.m. According to C-SPAN footage and a Post reporter on the scene, that is just a minute after the vice president was moved from the room into a nearby office. Had the attackers arrived just that one brief minute sooner, they might have spotted Pence, and who knows what might have happened then. Just 10 minutes later, by the way, with the vice president and his family in hiding, protected by Secret Service, the president tweeted, and I quote, "Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution." He didn't tweet, "Gosh, I hope the vice president's okay. Please, everyone, leave the Capitol." He didn't tweet, "There was no fraud. Joe Biden won the election. We'll get him next time in the ballot box." No. The mob, which nearly caught sight of the man they came to hang, still had these words from the president ringing in their ears.
When you catch somebody in a fraud, you're allowed to go by very different rules. So I hope Mike has the courage to do what he has to do. And I hope he doesn't listen to the rhinos and the stupid people that he's listening to. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women. And we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them, because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong.
Well, those were their marching orders. They were based on a lie. People died because of that lie. And even now, with the blood of police officers on his hands, with thousands of troops in the nation's capital, with authorities in all 50 states on alert for violence, this twice impeached president has not yet repudiated that lie. He doesn't care, or he just wants to burn it all down on his way out the door, or maybe both. He could tamp all of this down, but he won't. Of course he won't. He'll keep lying and saying the election was stolen, just like he and his allies have been saying, which is right on cue, parroted by some of his supporters bent on violence.
Make no mistake, this election was stolen from you, from me, and from the country.
It's unquestionable that our votes were stolen. It's unquestionable.
The Republican poll watchers were ejected, in some cases physically, from the room under the false pretense of a pipe burst.
People were pushed out of the voting areas, told that pipes had broken.
Election officials pulled boxes, Democrats, and suitcases of ballots out from under a table.
Ballots were made up out of nothing. They appeared from under tables in suitcases.
Well, you all saw it on television. Totally fraudulent.
They don't get to tell us we didn't see what we saw.
They changed the rules. They changed the election law, and they did it in an unconstitutional fashion.
They changed the rules mid-game, and they're not being held accountable, and that's a shame.
President Trump won this election.
We watched our American election get stolen from us.
Everyone who's listening, do not be quiet. Do not be silent about this. We cannot allow this to happen before our very eyes.
We have to, as American patriots, we have to do what we can to take back this country.
Republicans will not back down. We will not wait to 4 years from now to change this. We are going to fight this now.
We were normal, good, law-abiding citizens, and you guys did this to us. We want our country back.
From the president's lips to his enablers to the would-be lynch mob, all of it a lie. The president has yet to take back a word of it. Yesterday, Republican Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma sent a letter to his black constituents saying in part, What I did not realize was all of the national conversation about states like Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Michigan was seen as casting doubt on the validity of votes coming out of predominantly black communities like Atlanta, Philadelphia, and Detroit. He said he was blindsided by the reaction, but also found a blind spot within himself. He expressed regret in this letter, not, we should point out, for casting doubt on the outcome of the election, attempting to overturn those votes, but for what he called his blindness to how his words and actions could be interpreted by black residents of Oklahoma. Now, whatever you might think of Senator Lankford's apology, such as it is, it certainly far eclipses anything we have seen or heard from the president. For more now on the pomp and circumstance that the president wants to move on with, among other items, we're joined now by CNN Chief White House Correspondent Jim Acosta and CNN Chief Political Correspondent Dana Bash. Jim, so President Trump wants a big military send-off, which is, perhaps not surprising. I mean, is it just to take the sting out of being impeached a second time?
Anderson, I think it's just another dear leader moment for the president before he leaves office as this sorry, shameful chapter in American history comes to a miserable end next Wednesday. We are told by officials who are familiar with the planning of all of this that the president wants a ceremony, a grand departure ceremony that is similar to the kind of ceremonies you see when there's a departing head of state, complete with a 21-gun salute, a red carpet, a military band, and a color guard. And people at home might be wondering, Anderson, well, how can the president get something like this? Until noon on Wednesday, the 20th, Inauguration Day, he's still the commander-in-chief. And so he can order all of this, tell his staffers to set all of this up, and American tax dollars will pay for it.
So is this to happen before the inauguration? Does he want it to have it be in the middle of the inauguration as kind of counter-programming?
It is supposed to happen the morning of the 20th before Joe Biden takes the oath of office. And Anderson, it is a sad commentary on the Trump presidency. I was here on January 20th, 4 years ago, when the Obamas met the Trumps, greeted the Trumps in the North Portico, this North Portico entrance behind me, as Donald Trump was preparing to take the oath of office. And the Obamas showed that kind of grace and class, even though Trump had questioned the legitimacy of Barack Obama when he was president of the United States. President Trump is not going to afford the same courtesy to the Bidens. He is going to continue with this fantasy and this fraud that the election was stolen from him, and he is going to leave this city in that kind of fashion in an event that is essentially a fraud.
Yeah, I mean, these are small people that, they pretend this president pretends he's a big man, a strong man. He's too scared and, he's not strong enough to go to the actual inauguration. I mean, Dana, I get him wanting to try to take away from President-elect Biden's inauguration. He's petty like that. It makes sense, but it sure feels tone deaf. I mean, he wants this big military send-off. He's already got one because there's more than 21,000 National Guard troops in D.C. right now. The city is on lockdown because of him, and people are dying of COVID at record numbers, and the vaccine rollout is nowhere near where it needs to be. And this is what this guy is spending his final days planning and dreaming about?
Yes, this is Donald Trump. It is the way he has been, and he has become a caricature of himself, which is kind of hard to imagine given what we have seen over the past 4 years. But Anderson, you took the words out of my mouth, and we see the images right now. The president wants to have an image and some kind of theatrics that people will remember. This is what they're going to remember. They're going to remember people like Jim and me and, everybody else who works in this city having to go through checkpoint after checkpoint, like you would, Anderson, when you are going to war zones across the globe. But this is in the United States of America, and for one reason, and one reason only, and that is because voters in a free and fair democracy defeated Donald Trump, and he can't admit it. And he is still clinging to this lie because he was told since he was younger that you cannot be a loser. And so he is coming up with and hanging his hat. This is according to somebody who knows him well. This isn't even just me saying this. Hanging his hat on any crazy conspiracy theory that he can find in order to not admit the reality that he was defeated. Those are the images. That is the circumstance without the pomp that Donald Trump is going to have and always will always be remembered as he leaves office.